Hi everyone, my name is BKAM and my metric number is 277058. Today I would like to talk about the step implementation of activity-based costing and traditional costing, their characteristics. What are activity-based costing and traditional costing? Activity-based costing is a costing system which focuses on activity performed to produce product. Activity-based costing is that costing in which costs are first traced to the activity and then to products. Thus, traditional costing is an allocation of factory overhead to products based on the volume of production resources consumed. Under this method, overhead is usually applied based on the amount of direct labor hour or machine hour, which are hard to review the actual cost and effective relationship between the indirect cost and individual products. Based on the slide here, we can see that there are 4 steps to implement the activity-based costing. The first step is we need to identify and classify activity. Next, we need to estimate the cost for whole activity and compute a cost driver rate. The last step is to apply the activity cost using cost driver. We can say that activity-based costing is based on actual performance, consumption, and expense data taken out from the organization activity information system and combined with the knowledge of those directly involved in distribution of goods and services. Here, the cost is designated to the activity based on the resources they use for processing. It also provides insight into the starting place of cost and the probable outcomes of different decisions by process manager. Apart from providing the information required for the process, it also realizes performance breakout, such that the attribute of activity-based costing is that it does not vary with the volume. However, it may differ with some other measure of activity, and it recognizes that activity cost. Under activity-based costing, there is no change in short run because the costs are correlated with supplying the capacity essential to carry out manufacturing operation, marketing operation, or administration. However, activity-based costing allows managers to get rid of costs related to non-value-added activity and develop the efficiency of present development, since it offers better visibility into business development and their cost driver. When information visibility improves, it enables the consumption of quality-related initiative by classifying activities that were related to core product quality and their cost driver. Lastly, this costing method is expensive to implement and maintain. Next, let's take a look at how traditional costing works. In traditional costing method, we need to identify and estimate the indirect cost first. Then we need to choose cost driver and estimate the value for the cost drivers. Lastly, we need to compute the overhead rate and apply it. In traditional costing, there is a certain amount of estimation in allocation. The costing system do not focus on why or where the cost occurs. Generally, there is a little insight into the cost of variance. The reporting methodology is accounting-oriented, inaccurate, not flexible, and not often timely. The operational manager often cannot understand, since it is very analytical and do not related to the cost of a product or service. Lastly, this costing system is relatively less expensive to implement and maintain. That's all from me. Thank you.
Good day to doctor. My name is Lim Chingy, matrix number 270-823. Now I'm going to present the costing system. A costing system determines the cost of a cost object through completing two basic steps, which is the cost accumulation and cost assignment. Cost accumulation means in cost data in an organized way through an accounting system. The accumulated costs are then assigned to the cost object through tracing for direct costs and allocation for indirect costs, which are also called overheads. Traditional costing and activity-based costing are identical in the way that they trace direct costs to a cost object, but differ in the way that they allocate indirect costs to a cost object. For cost pool, for traditional costing, they use cost center as cost pool and allocate indirect costs to a cost object through those cost centers. The figure 1 shows the process of cost allocation under traditional costing, using the product as the cost object. In the figure, we can see that indirect costs are first assigned to cost center. It both traced and allocated depending on whether a specific indirect cost item can be directly traced to a cost center or not. Here, cost center includes service department, which provide internal services to other two departments, and production department, which directly participate in the production system. The costs accumulated in service departments are then reallocated to production department using the direct method, step-down method, or reciprocal method. By this time, the indirect costs accumulated in production department includes the department on indirect costs and any indirect costs received from service department. These indirect costs are then allocated to products by using the allocation rate, also called the absorption rate. Next, under ABC, cost centers are not used as cost pool to allocate indirect costs. Instead, activities are used as cost pool. Indirect costs are first accumulated in activity cost pool and then allocated to product using activity cost driver rates according to the product's requirement for different activity. The figure 2 shows the process. In conclusion, the choice of cost pool under ABC is more reasonable because companies consume resources as a result of conducting activity instead of having cost center. For example, consider a company that claims to have a production department but does not conduct any production activity. Under traditional costing, it does not actually incur the cost. However, the company will incur costs when a production department conducts production activity, such as handling material, setting up machine, running those machines, and doing quality control. Next, we're looking at the next perspective, which is the allocation basis. Under traditional costing, the allocation base are used to allocate indirect costs are volume-based allocation. Example include direct material costs, direct manufacturing labor hours, machine hour, direct manufacturing labor hour, output volume, and so on. These allocation bases have a positive correlation with output volume. Therefore, they are called volume-based allocation base. By using volume-based allocation bases, traditional costing simply assumes that all indirect costs are driven by the output volume. However, this assumption is not realistic because many indirect costs are not actually affected by the output volume. For example, the design cost of a product is affected by the complexity of the product. Once the product design is finished, the design cost is fixed no matter how many units of the product are finally produced. Next, for the ABC costing, to recognize the diversity of operating activity, the ABC method classifies operating activity into 4 hierarchies and apply relevant allocation bases to allocate activity costs. The allocation base chosen usually have a causal relationship activity in different hierarchies, and thus they are also called as cost driver. That's all from me. Thank you.
Everyone, I am Manila Ganesh, metric number 272781. I am going to present about the hierarchy of costs and type of activities of ABC costing and traditional costing. Traditional costing generally estimates all the cost of an organization as being driven by the volume of product or service delivered. For traditional costing, only 2 types of activities, which are unit level activities and facility level activities, are being used. ABC costing allows for non-linearity of cost within the organization by explicitly recognizing that some cost is not caused by the number of units produced. Level of activities in ABC cost hierarchy are unit level, batch level, product level, facility level, and customer level. Although using cost drivers to assign overhead costs to individual units works well for some activities, but some activities such as setup costs, the costs are not incurred to produce an individual unit, but rather to produce a batch of same unit. For other costs, the cost incurred might be based on the number of product lines or simply because there is a manufacturing facility. To assign overhead costs more accurately, activity-based costing assigns activities to all 4 categories. Now, I will explain about each level. First of all, unit level activities. Unit level activities occurs every time a service is performed or a product is made. The cost of direct material, direct labor, and machine maintenance are examples of unit level activities. For example, providing power to run processing equipment would be a unit level activity. Secondly, batch level activities. These activities are costs incurred every time a group or batch of units is produced or a series of steps is performed. Purchase orders, machine setup, and quality test are examples of batch level activities. For example, setting up equipment and shipping customers' orders are batch level activities. The third one would be product line activities. Those activities that support an entire product line but not necessarily each individual unit. Examples of product line activities are engineering changes made in the assembly line, product design changes, and warehousing and storage costs for each product line. For example, designing or advertising a product would be product level activities. The fourth one will be facility support activities. These activities are necessary for development and production to take place. These costs are administrative in nature and include building depreciation, property taxes, plant security, insurance, accounting, outside landscape and maintenance, and plant management and support staff's salaries. For example, heating a factory and cleaning executive office are facility level activities. The last one is customer level activities. Customer level activities relate to specific customers and are not tied to any specific product. For example, sales calls and catalog mailings would be customer level activities. Cost of unit level, batch level, and product line activities are easily allocated to a specific product either directly as a unit level activity or through allocations of a pooled cost for batch level and product line activities. In contrast, the facility level costs are kept separate from product costs and are not allocated to individual units because the allocation would have been made on an arbitrary basis such as square feet, number of divisions or products, and so on. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm now going to present for the comparative of traditional costing method with activity-based costing method in the perspective of their sales price margin. Sales price margin can be illustrated as the price markup from the product cost to generate profit income. So for each method, it actually differs on overhead cost for each of the product as when we calculate. Okay, now for the first one is for traditional costing method. Based on the article data referred, we are going to look on the current price of items and their direct labor hours for Part A, Part B, and Part C. We can see here, in traditional costing, it uses plant-wide rate, which is direct labor hours, as the overhead allocation base, where it actually just calculates the overhead cost without noticing the relationship between the cost pool and the cost driver. As a result, the overhead rate now is RM26.95 per direct labor hour. As shown in this table, to calculate for the total cost, we add up the direct material cost, direct labor cost, and the overhead cost applied, which is by multiplying the overhead rate with the actual direct labor hour for each part. As when we compare the total cost with the selling price here, we get the margin of the selling price. Meanwhile, for ABC costing method, which is activity-based costing method, Based on the article data referred, in this study case, we are going to find the true cost for each parts by activity-based costing method ABC. The true cost here refers to total product cost that we get by adding the direct material cost, direct labor cost, and special for the overhead cost we get by assigning it to its cost drivers that the writer gets after interviewing the staff of the company. As we look at here, there is few cost objects here like customer orders, parts manufactured, works orders, setups, and few more. For next step, we are doing cost determination. 4% of activities that are done by the 25 employees in the company in the following groups. Activities that we get here like processing orders include 12 employees at 24% of total employees, scheduling orders include 10 employees at 20% of total employees, and few more. Okay, now let's find out the unit activity cost for each of the activity by multiplying the total indirect cost given in the statement with the percent of activity. So we get the activity cost for processing orders is 1,503,840 ringgit and continue the same with the others for activities to get the activity cost. The level of activities for this processing orders and shipping part is unit level. So the cost driver is number of orders and number of shipments respectively, which is 6,300 units. For the other three, the level of activity is batch level, which include 330 batches. Therefore, by dividing this activity cost with their cost driver quantity, we will get cost per units of each of the activity assigns. The next step is to find the overhead cost for each of the activity assigns to get the total overhead cost for each parts. At the end, we add up the total overhead cost for each parts with the direct material cost and the direct labor cost. We will get the total cost assigned by activity base. As we compare the total cost for each parts with their selling price, we will get the margin of the selling price. Now we can see there is diversities for percentage of the sales margins for each parts when we compare between traditional costing method and the ABC costing method, which conclude by using different costing method will occur different amount of total product cost. To analyze this data, firstly let's focus on part A. By using traditional costing method, the selling price margin we get is 25.41%. But by calculating it through ABC costing method, we will get 27.49%, where it shows for part A, we'll earn more profit by 2.08% more when calculating the total product cost using the ABC costing method. For part B, by using traditional costing method, it shows a margin of selling price at 27.50%, while for ABC costing method, it shows 25.140%, where now it shows by using traditional costing method for part B, we'll earn more profit up to 2.36% differ from using ABC costing method. For part C, traditional costing method shows selling price margin at 35.18% and ABC shows 34.66% for the selling price margin. Where now we can see by using ABC costing method for part C, even though it still shows the best margin to compute the true cost, but just less than the traditional costing method margin percentage. In accordance with that, we can conclude that as compared to traditional costing method, activity-based costing method gives us the true cost of the part, where it assigns cost according to the specific cost drivers that assigns to each of the activity incurred for each parts to give an accurate amount of the overhead cost. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Noliana binti Baharul, my method number 277969. Today I will present about advantage and disadvantage of activity-based costing and traditional costing. Advantage of activity-based costing and traditional costing. If the cost of activity-based costing exceeded the benefits, company should not apply activity-based costing system. If so, the capital expenditure on the activity-based costing system and its subsequent running costs can be a roadblock for firms. In Malaysia, some organizations that have changed to the activity-based costing system since as far back as 1980, as the system had proven its usability in the appropriate product mix decision and overhead management. Activity-based costing will work best with a minimum amount of detail and estimate cost figures. This means that companies in Malaysia wanting to change to activity-based costing needed the appointment of a designer to come out with more precise measurement tools if more accurate costs are needed. Even though activity-based costing often provided better product costs than traditional costs, it still had some limitations. First, activity-based costing systems were found to be expensive to use. In Malaysia, the increased cost of identifying multiple activities of applying large amount of cost drivers deterred many organizations from using activity-based costing. Activity-based costing is more accurate cost estimation method. Activity-based costing help managers to become aware of original parameters that created demand on indirect and keep up resources which can identify and remove from non-value adding activities. Also illustrated that activity-based costing approach had demonstrated to be more accurate than the traditional cost estimation. Disadvantage of activity-based costing and traditional costing. Traditional costing system is that they do not present non-financial information about small and medium enterprise. This would comprise of supply and maintenance expenses, allotment of management, salaries, depreciation, etc. Activity-based costing had emerged of a very useful guide to management action that translated directly into higher profit. Traditional costing method is that the cost of a sales representative taking in non-standard selling activities is frequently excluded. The potential power of activity-based costing costs data in pricing. It is important to comprehend have activity-based costing. Cost data is different in contrast to the traditional costing. That's all from me.